Hello guys, welcome back to another YouTube video, and in this video we are going to be going over how to play the newest champion of Paladins, Azaan. Now you guys might have noticed that after the Sati video I didn't really post a lot, like not at all, and as you guys know I'm super busy over most of my announcement videos, but I try and get videos out as much as I can, and over Christmas break I have had some time to prepare this video for you guys, and I really hope you guys are going to enjoy it. But with that being said, let's get right into things. Like usual, we are going to be starting by going over the talents, then we are going to go over the abilities, because the talents affect the abilities, and then we are going to be going over the loadout I have for him, and finally the items, and then lastly I am going to show you guys some tips and tricks and just like voice my opinions on him. And with that being said, the first ability we are going to be going the first talent we are going to be going over is tempering. Now this one is worded very weirdly, but it basically buffs all of his abilities. Like you get slightly more damage, Sanctuary has more health and lasts a little bit longer, Conviction knocks people up higher, does a little more damage, but their cooldowns are increased by 50%. In my opinion, this is a waste of a talent. I personally do not use it, but if you want to try it out, go for it. But like I always say, this is my opinion on a champion. You can play him in many different ways. I'm just sharing you guys my opinion. His next ability affects this thing he has called Ire, which I will explain shortly. It's kind of like Furier's bar or other champions' bars that as it goes up, or like how Vora, when she gets those dots, it like infects her abilities. Whenever you use an ability with Azaan, it takes away some of his ire. But the other thing with his ire is that it will give you a damage buff when you have it at max. But the downside is if you're not doing damage or taking damage, it starts to decrease. And this is kind of annoying, but honestly, if you're playing him right, you're always going to be getting shot at because you're playing him as a tank off tank role, and you should always be fighting. And it doesn't even take that long to get the ire up, so this talent is eternal, and it makes it so you no longer lose your ire, but you don't get the passive damage increase, which it's like, I don't know, I just think it's useless. And it's not very effective in a lot of situations because your ire is always going to be up because you're taking damage. But with that being said, let's move on to the third talent and the one that I actually use. This talent is called Persistence, and it affects your primary fire. Every time you use your primary fire, you will take 5% reduced damage and you get 40% lifesteal on that shot. Now that might not sound like a lot, but his hits do on average like 600 damage, so you're healing for a little, like 250-ish every hit. Obviously without cauterized, but it's actually pretty helpful, and also taking 5% reduced damage, it makes you even more tanky, and is honestly his most viable talent, which is why I choose to use it. Now, with the talents out of the way and telling you which one I use, we are going to start going over his abilities. Just to recap, if you guys didn't watch the last section, Ire is his passive. As it goes up, once it gets above a certain percent, which is the 85%, you get the damage bonus, and if you get all the way up to 100%, you take 20% less damage from incoming attacks. Now, with that out of the way, we're going to be going over Judgment, which is his primary fire. And what happens is he throws his hammer, and it goes 525, 525, 630. So it's one hit, two hits, 525, and then he does one big one for 630. It's a slow-moving attack, but it also is very effective, and it does a lot of damage. And as you can see on the screen right above me, I am going to be comparing the non-IR boosted to the IR boosted, and as you can see, the IR boost does make the damage go up by a decent amount. The next ability is Reckoning, which is his secondary fire. It has a 10-second cooldown, and it's a very short ranged attack, but what it does is it launches out this orb from his hammer and it explodes, launching anybody stuck in it straight up in the air. And this ability is useful. I don't think it's his most useful ability, but it's pretty useful because if someone's trying to escape from you, you can use that, knock them straight up, they can't escape. And it does actually pretty good for the most part. It is a basic ability, basic CC controlling ability. Does a decent amount of damage. It does 300. It's not a crazy amount, but for a tank, it's pretty good. And yeah, honestly, it's a good ability. Like any frontline tank, he's going to have some sort of wall he can use, and that is his Sanctuary ability. What it does is it creates a series of 5 like tombstone looking wall thingies with gaps that you can't really fit through but you can shoot through, and they each have 2,500 health, and it does really well for protecting and getting you out of sticky situations. And yeah, that's basically it to it. Nothing too serious. It just creates a wall in front of you. It's really good for protecting your teammates. So his next ability is my favorite ability, which is his Conviction ability. And it is his movement ability, but it's really cool and really versatile, and honestly, I love it. So he does a dash where he can run into an enemy. Hitting the enemy does a decent amount of damage, and then if you hit a wall while carrying the enemy with it, it will stun them for a few seconds after you hit the wall. And the cool thing is if you hit your own sanctuary walls with it, it will do additional damage. And this isn't the only use for it. If you can use it to dash straight, if you aim slightly up, you can dash at like a 45-degree angle up, or if you aim straight up, almost you can go like straight up. There's so much different ways you can use this ability, and it honestly is probably my favorite part of his kit. Finally, we have his ultimate, and honestly, it is a pretty good ultimate in my opinion. So when you activate it, it consumes 70% of the charge and you go flying up into the air. Then you get this circle thing on your screen, which you will use to aim at the enemies that are preferably in a bunch. And then he throws his hammer down, doing 725 damage and implying a small knockback, and shortly after he falls down and punches the ground, doing a little less than damage than when the hammer hit the ground, but applying a way larger knockback. It is a good way to disrupt the enemy team, get them separated to pick them off. Also does a good amount of damage, and since you take 50% less damage when you're up in the air, you are able to use it to get yourself out of sticky situations and draw the enemy team's attention. Now we are going to go over the loadout, and then we'll be ready to finally get into a match. So the first card I have in my deck is Deadly Etiquette, and what it does is reduces the cooldown of Conviction by 1.5 seconds after using Reckoning. And as I said, Conviction is my favorite ability. I think it's most useful, so obviously I want the cooldown of that even lower. So that's why I have it like that. And then the next card builds off of this, which is Indication, which reduces the base cooldown of it from 10 seconds down to 8. Plus the additional cooldown of the last card I mentioned. This enables you to be able to use this ability as fast as possible, allowing you to be the most mobile version of Azaan as possible. Next card at level 3 is Flames of Wrath. Now what this does is it will increase the height people are knocked up with your Reckoning ability, and what this does is it allows them to be more CC'd for longer, because the longer they're in the air, the less control they have of their character. and each level you go up moves it up 10%. I have mine at level 3, so it knocks them up an additional 30%. Now, the fourth card is Duty is a Mountain, and what this does is it increases the time until ire starts to decay by 0.25 seconds, which honestly is like I haven't really seen it come to effect that often, but it's not a long amount of time. But it's just a little, just enough that if an enemy runs around the corner, you're still able to keep that ire up when you get around the corner. Now, the final card in the deck is Internal Strife, and this means if you're above the ire threshold, like above that 85%, every time you use an ability, it will heal you for 85. Now, 85 doesn't sound like a lot, but if you're playing Azaan right, you should always be above that threshold. So every single time you use an ability, you're gaining heals. Now, with my deck out of the way, which I don't know if it's the best deck, this is the deck I prefer and the deck I have had a lot of success with, averaging about 120,000 damage per game. Really filling that off-tank role, we will get into the items you should buy as him in game. Now, some of the items you should buy as Azaan, of course, we are going to have to start off with Cauterize. Now, he is a damage dealer. Even though he is a tank, he is a damage dealer, and does put out quite a bit, as I mentioned before, averaging about 120k per game. So you're definitely want to get Cauterized to start off the game, because you'll enable the other healers to be absolutely worthless, as well as hunting them down and killing them. Plus you're Cauterized, they're not going to have a very fun game. Now, the second one I recommend getting is Chronos. This is because his cooldowns are about 10 seconds, and 10 seconds is kind of long to wait, but if you get Max Chronos, it goes even lower. Plus, the reduced cooldowns in the deck enables you to combo his abilities really fast near the end of the game, when it is really important to make sure you win your 1v1s, and in his case, sometimes his 1v2s. The third and fourth honestly really depend. He's a very versatile character. You can get kill to heal if you're getting a lot of elims because the other team just can't seem to kill you. And you can also get resilience if they have a lot of CC, which is shutting down your dash. And you can also get Haven if you are getting, if they have like triple DPS and you're just getting absolutely fried, get Haven and then they won't be a problem anymore. Yeah, he's honestly pretty good. He's a really good solid character. Cauterize Kronos are only the real items you need with him. And with that being said, we are going to move on to the final section, which I'm going to tell you guys some tips and tricks I have noticed with him. I would like to start off this section by just mentioning a few issues I kind of have with him as a character. I think they did nerf him, they have done some nerfs to him. I still think he is slightly overpowered. I think he has a little bit too much health, maybe, or a little bit too much sustain, but he doesn't die very easily. Like, I played, let's say, 5 games with him. I looked at the last 5 games I played with him. I was averaging 2-3 deaths a game. Even in games that we lost, I was only getting 4 deaths. There was one game we lost where I had the most damage across both teams, the least amount of deaths, most amount of kills, and most amount of assists. Now, obviously, it does take a skilled player, but he's still somewhat overpowered, and I would like to see them nerf probably his disdain a little bit more. But until then, here's some tips and tricks for him. I would recommend you guys just going for the backline, but before you do that, get to full ire. Full ire is so beneficial for him, so I would recommend you guys get full ire and then go dive the backline. Go after the damage dealer or go after the healer. Either or will work perfectly. I prefer to go after the healer, and when the healer tries to escape using their movement ability, bang, you reckoning them, or bang, you trap them with your sanctuary, and there's nowhere to go, and they're dead, and the other team has no healer. You turn around, come in from behind, and just take out the whole team from there. That's really the only big tip I have for him. Just play him as you would any other off tank, kind of like Khan. Um, but he's very aggressive. You need to play him aggressive. You can kind of play him sitting back, but you get the most value out of him if you play him super aggressive. With that being said, thank you all so much for watching. If you made it all the way through, obviously you like my videos. We have a playlist, or I have a playlist. I don't know why I said we. I have a playlist that I've been making on how to play all the champions. Obviously, the newer thumbnail ones are probably going to be a lot more beneficial to you guys because I have learned a lot. Because I made those first few videos at probably like 50 subscribers, if that, and now we're almost to 150, and maybe we can get to 200 by the end of the month. If we can, that would be amazing. But thank you guys so much for watching. Leave a like, leave a comment, suggest champions you want to see down below, and with that, I will see you guys in the next video.